two, one. And we are live. This is the Black Powder Podcast. I am your primary host, the one with the most. Everybody else that's hosting their second, third place, fourth place, wherever you want to put them. I'm Marcus Matthews. This is the Black Powder Podcast. Thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. As usual, I'm joined by my two co-hosts of the moment until I tire of their shenanigans. Eric Parker, Bold Liberty. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing great, rocking the Lars for President shirt. So, because obviously we got Lars here live with us tonight. So I'm doing great here in North Carolina, High Point, North Carolina, not named after the cheap guns.
And then coming in a distant third, fourth, fifth place, I have my secondary, non-primary co-host, Tub, the Florida man, representing Florida in the great state run by Ron DeSantis. Tub, how you do? Well, Tub, here you are.
Here I am. Listen, I am down here currently enjoying non-Florida weather, so it's pretty nice because it's not 90 degrees. And I'm just waiting for the day, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, when Eric and I take the show over and we bring it to great depths, which is we amazing things happen.
I would ask that you both refer to my T-shirt shortly, like real quick. I'm the only real libertarian. And speaking of libertarians, we have one of the greatest of the modern era coming on today. A man who stood proud throughout this election cycle, threw his hat in the ring, and I'm very proud to say I call him my friend, Lars.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on again. I appreciate it. And also, thanks to all three of you for supporting my campaign and really putting best foot forward. I appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you because a lot of people don't understand what it takes to do what you did. And a lot of people take for granted that they're just going to have somebody that shows up and says, hey, I want to lead. Because it takes a grand understanding of the process to even do what you did. And I salute you, sir. It's real stuff over here that you stepped up and said, hey, I want to make a difference. And that's what we need in society. And that's what I think libertarians bring to the party, is because everybody that is a libertarian that steps up to that mantle saying, hey, I'm running for office. And I'm the only one on this podcast right now that hasn't done that.
Yet.
But you got to understand, it's almost a losing situation from the get-go, but you still had the gumption and the wherewithal to say, hey, I'm going to be that person that stands up for what is right now the majority of Americans, because Democrats and Republicans, they only belong in a very small segment of no more than 30% of our society apiece. And that leaves 40+% of Americans that don't identify with the uniparty duopoly. And we need to understand that when libertarians are stepping up, they're stepping up for the right reasons. That's why we salute you, Michael White. You're out there doing your thing, and we'll get to boosting his campaign at some point in the podcast tonight. But Eric, I want to defer to you to bring us forth the first thing that we want to talk to Mr. Lars Mapstead about. And, I'm just going to go to you. So go ahead.
Yeah. So Lars, being from California, I know that there's a huge environmental push in your state legislature with all sorts of things. But there's one thing where they were closing all the nuclear power plants, and then I think somebody convinced them to keep one open. But I wanted to ask you: have you heard about in China how everyone always says, well, the only way that we get environmentalism under control and slow climate change or reverse it or make it better is if we get China and India on board. But I read an article recently that China is building over 100 new nuclear power plants. Just want to ask you your thoughts on both California politics on environmentalism and nuclear power, and the world stage with China building nuclear power. Maybe something from your campaign platform whenever you were running on nuclear power. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot to dig into right there. Essentially, as far as California goes, these guys, they talk an ideology. This is all politicians pretty much. They talk an ideology of the things that they want to do, but then when presented with opportunities to do those things, they cower and they don't do it basically. So we have a technology here that could solve a lot of the problems that they're complaining about, that they're concerned about with climate change and that sort of thing. But they refuse to embrace it. They refuse to put any effort and energy into it. And so what we had come up with in my campaign was we wanted to have an energy race where we vastly reduce the cost of energy. And this would cut inflation, and it would cut, the cost of all goods and services, because everything is embedded with energy costs.
Right.
And, a lot of times I've felt like libertarians have a hard time with environmental stuff and kind of embracing that. And I was at a convention, and the guy told me, you should come to this event that we're going to have about free market environmentalism. And I'm like, what the hell's free market environmentalism? I never heard that term before, right? And so basically they explained to me that given time and given no government regulation or not a heavy hand from government, that free market can fix the problems that we have. But the government is so in the way that the free market isn't allowed to actually fix the problems that we have. So what I'm really excited about right now is Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have all announced projects to bring small SMR nuclear power plants, small footprint nuclear reactors online, because they need them for AI. So this is the free market needing a solution because they want to be green. They all have things inside their governance that says that they have to cut their carbon footprint, and they understand, being technologists, that the best way to do that is to embrace nuclear power, right? France is the least producing carbon footprint country in the world today. And that's because they embraced nuclear power like no other country has. And they've built, I don't know, hundreds of those things, right? So yeah, of course, China's doing that. And they're also working on fusion, nuclear fusion, which would be a huge, that'd be a game changer for mankind, right? Like that would just basically free up everything. And so the other thing is that energy, we all fight over resources, but energy is one of the things that we fight over the most, that we go to war over the most. And if we could vastly reduce the cost of energy and give everybody a lot of energy, we would stop a lot of these wars that we're having, right? So there's this whole tie-in of kind of energy as a we have to have it for our national security, to be energy independent, because if we're attacked or we have to go to war and we're relying on other countries to power our stuff, that's going to be bad news, right? And so we need it for that, but we also need it for economic security, because whoever has the cheapest energy will create the most jobs, will have the most surpluses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited that with these three things that they announced, one of them was they're reopening 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
Amazon just put in something like $500 million into a new project. Microsoft's been going at it in, I think it's Montana or Wyoming. They have they basically got a town to agree to put one of these things in. And the town is going to own the reactor, and whatever excess energy they have, they're going to get a dividend for the whole town in the farm
from Microsoft. Or
it's like let us build this thing in your town, and then you will basically own it, but we get the energy.
That's
awesome. The people get the funding, or the city gets the funding?
I think it's what I kind of heard was it's sort of like the oil thing in Alaska, where you get a dividend each year. You get a little check for
That's awesome.
Yeah, and obviously they're all going to have really cheap power there, because that's a piece of it too, right? So I think this is the free market finding the solution that the U.S. government hasn't been able to do. If we rely on government to fix climate change. Like they can't fix anything. Like they can't fix the road down my street. How the hell are they going to fix the entire climate? It's just ridiculous. So we got to let
They can fix an election.
Well, government ruins everything. Everybody knows that. Government absolutely ruins.
It makes it all mediocre. We have to abolish the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, get that out of the way, and let these companies build what they need to build. And the new technology. Look, everybody's got a fear of nuclear technology because we've all heard the horror stories and whatever. But look, those things were built in the 70s. You know what I mean? Like if we were still stuck in the 70s, we'd all have rotary phones still, and we'd be we wouldn't be doing this thing that we're doing right now, right? So
and eating lead paint chips.
100%.
Yeah.
What did your parents do to you, Marcus?
It was delicious. If you add a little Red Rooster hot sauce to lead
Of
paint
course,
chips.
hot sauce. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I know you were. Yeah. So
I heard the lead paint was sweet. I don't know.
So, Lars, let me ask you a question. So, they said that they're going into these smaller towns. The one you said it was either Montana, Wyoming.
Yeah.
So, they're probably going to see it's efficient and works. But let me ask you the question the other way. What do you think would be the reason why other places don't get on board for that?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I mean, like clearly in California, there's going to be a whole bunch of people marching that are like still stuck in the 1970s and saying, this is bad. It's going to destroy us and all that kind of stuff. And they will, suffer the economic consequences for not participating, right? Like that's the bottom line. And so the beautiful thing about the market is it will change people's minds over time. If you see that it's working somewhere else and they're getting a lot of benefits from it, eventually the Overton window shifts and you're like, well, I kind of like that, right? Like I kind of want that in my life now. It's like when libertarians have been pushing for legalizing marijuana for whatever it is, 50 years, right? And then the Democrats kind of embraced it, right? And that because we basically shifted the Overton window. One of the things that I learned running in my campaign is that we might not get the headline that we are changing society for the better, that we're not introducing freedom to society. But I guarantee you that the ideas that are coming out of the Libertarian Party, many of them become mainstream and many of them then get enacted, but maybe by other people. But at least we put the thoughts in people's brains.
I often say, I don't care who gets the credit for it. Let's just make it happen.
Right. 100%.
Well, there's something about the whole energy thing, because the state of California has mandated that by 2034, every vehicle be at least hybrid. That's the way I understand it, but they have to be electric vehicles by 20. We do not have the infrastructure in California to power our air conditioners during the summer. And you're talking about selling every car, and the logistics of this thing is just simply amazing because, in the greater Los Angeles region that encompasses 4 counties, you're talking about 13 to 15 million people. And that's probably means there's roughly 10 million plus cars in that area. And you're talking about a turnover of 10 million cars, that's going to take decades to do. But California has taken 0 steps to move in that direction where we're going to have the infrastructure to power all these electric cars. And me being in the great state of California, like my man Lars, while you guys are back there with some weird
California.
Yeah.
They do. Both of those states do have no income tax, so they do have that going on.
Yeah, but
actually, North Carolina does have an income tax.
Oh,
yeah. And Florida has a high property tax. And then you can get homeowners insurance in Florida.
And California has all of those problems.
I can't get homeowners. I can't get fire insurance right now because there's a big fight going on in California with and that's another one of those systems where the stupid government controls all the insurance and they mandate how much they can make and what they can make and who can offer it and all that kind of crap. If I want to buy insurance from a guy in Saudi Arabia, I should be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And-
what we have here in Florida too with homeowners insurance.
Yeah, we can't even cross state lines, right? Like, yeah. So literally,
Hey, wasn't there a president who was talking about changing that? I don't know.
yeah,
who.
Lars Mapstead for president.
Well, you should be able to
Yeah,
have
I-
insurance however you want. Let the market work. It's like ridiculous. You know, everybody complains about the prices, and then they just keep voting for authoritarian governments that don't want to embrace the market. It's insanity.
Well,
why would you want to change the system that brought you to power? And that's the thing I think libertarians need to strike out on, is we need to change the system. And Lars was like, unrig this system. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why he will always be a welcome figure on this podcast, because we completely concur with your logic behind that. Tub, what were you about to say before I appropriately interrupted you?
So you said you phrased that wrong. So, but here's what I tell you. I tell people all the time. So you're talking about how are we going to handle the idea of shifting over to electric cars, and I tell people, I said, listen, I said the electric cars are temporary anyway. I'm telling you, government doesn't really care about electric cars either. Their goal is, because here's what happens. They know if they finally convert it over. Now I tell people, electric cars is about control, because they can put the charging stations where they want them, and can dictate how you move across the country. And I said that ultimately people know that when you try to go replace batteries or whatever, they can't afford it. And so then guess what you end up doing? You end up you get rid of your car, you have no car at all. And then once you don't have a car at all, that's where government gets to come in with some form of mass transit, buses, anything along those lines, and they can start forcing you. So now it's a stepping stone to government control, is all it is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Recognition and all of that stuff in the stations, the public transportation stations. So they're knowing your exact movements and knowing where you are at any particular time, more so than they do right now with cell phones. But Lars,
well, I was also reading an article about in Europe, you know, they've mandated even stricter laws for reaching the carbon, you know, offsets for these automobile makers, right? And they have penalties to the automobile makers if they don't reach the certain goals by the certain date or whatever. And the companies are like, no one's buying these electric vehicles, so we're not going to meet these things. And they said it was something like $9 billion of penalties to the auto agencies for not meeting the standards. And the agencies are like, well, we're going to go out of business, and you're going to lose all car manufacturing in Europe. And now it's supposed to be like at the end of 2025, right? Is when it all comes into effect. And the government agent who was like quoted about it said, oh, well, we got plenty of time. We got a whole year left for them to get in line and get this thing going. And the car company's like, bro, you don't understand. You're going to literally lose the entire industry, and China's going to own it all, because you guys don't understand how markets work. Like, even if you apply pressure and use government against the market still finds a way to correct itself, right? That's the real of it. It's like if you crack down on, you know, cigarettes or whatever, the market turns into a black market and it corrects itself, right? You have bad outcomes because it's correcting itself in a way that wouldn't normally happen if you let the market work, right? But these government agencies just completely break the system and then whine about why things don't work.
Hey, Lars, as far as the nuclear power situation, do you think it's taken the United States so long? That's kind of a loaded question. Because of overregulation, and was that intentional? And in my opinion, funded by competition, meaning the lobbyists were paying our legislators to keep it unavailable so that oil, gas, and then like solar and whatever.
I'm sure there's some of that. I'm sure that there's people lobbying to make sure that their industry gets the better nod from the government. But a big part of it is we have the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and they are the ones that get to approve or disapprove of any new plants coming down the line, right? And it turns out that like their job's cushy. Like they've got a lot, they make a lot of money. They haven't approved many plants in the last like 30 years, basically, right? And it's almost to their benefit to never approve anything, because they will just keep getting money for being in their work. And nothing bad will ever happen. There's no, no accidents can happen if you don't allow any power plants to ever be built, right? And so they basically are just, they've created their own little bureaucracy that like feeds on itself. And it's basically, like I always say, government breeds mediocrity. And basically they're just a bunch of mediocre people that have no incentive to excel, no incentive to do better for the American people. And that's all government, basically. They, for the most part, just sit around on their ass and do nothing. And they would rather have no change because it's working great for them right now. It's not working so great for the rest of the people in America. I mean, all my friends are struggling. They're like, oh, inflation's over. Hurrah. And I'm like, have you looked at the price of crap? I mean, nobody can even buy anything anymore, right? It's insanity, right? It's these guys are nuts,
So
but that's it's part of lowering the standard. If they can lower the standards, like for us, if they can lower the standards for the little people, then all of a sudden they don't care, because if we learn that this is just the way now, like this is just the way, and then they don't worry about it. That's all they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I came up with a coined a term this week, which I thought was fantastic, is Americans are in a coma wrapped by their warm blanket of entitlements.
Listen, that's real. That's good, but it's a hard one to roll off the tongue. but it's there.
Yeah, it is. Well, I want to talk to that entitlements real quick, because the government has been taking money from me since I was 16 years old. And only entitlement is I'm entitled to that money that they've been stealing from me since I had my first job at 16 years old. Yep. If they don't have my money when they say, hey, Marcus, you're old enough, which is not that too far from here, fortunately. But if they don't have my money, there's going to be hell to pay, because I've been being extorted. At that point, I would have been extorted for a good 50 years of my life.
Yeah.
Imagine what an American can do if they were able to save an exorbitant amount of money that they have progressively taken out of my paychecks as I have moved up the food chain since I was making minimum wage, which I think was $4.25. Actually, my first job was $5 an hour, and I thought I was balling because everybody else was making $4.25 an hour.
Yeah.
But from that point, when a 16-year-old Marcus got his first job till right now, and close to it'll be 50 years. I'm not going to say when, but in a few plus years, it'll be 50 years. If they don't have my money, who am I slapping? That's what I want to know, because I'm coming with the strong pimp hand, because the government has been stealing.
What are you, Superfly? I'm gonna get you, sucker. If the government don't have all of my money,
my money,
not half,
I will put
not some, not half, not some, all my money. Yeah, and yes, it is, because they've been pimping me for 50 years. It's some get back. Yeah.
The thing is about the Social Security, you hear a lot of people complaining about how there's income inequality and it's hard for regular people to ever get ahead. I argue that is, there's a couple of different things, but I argue that Social Security is one of the reasons why people can't get ahead. Because if you had been able to save that money yourself and you had put that money away, you would have $1 million in your bank account right now that you would have saved up and invested in the stock market. And that $1 million would be paying you something like $4 or $5 grand a month of dividends that you would get. And here's the thing, when you die, your kids would get that $1 million, and then they would have a nest egg to build off of.
That becomes generational wealth.
Generational wealth. So Social Security is designed to keep people poor and to keep people slave labor for the system. And this is an atrocity, and this is why this system has to be abolished. It has to be unwound, and we have to get rid of it if we're ever going to have prosperity for regular people in America. Because the way that you build wealth, and this is, I went from nothing to having wealth, and the way that you do that is by being an asset holder. You do not build wealth by working a job. you build wealth by having assets. And so part of my whole plan was to try to get it to a system where people could start building a nest egg for themselves, where they'd have an opportunity to put money to work for themselves, so that they don't have to like work all their lives and then end up with nothing, and then the government, at the time you die, then they take half your stupid money after that.
Yeah.
You already gave them half your money, and then they take another half, so you're left with like a quarter of your money. It drives me nuts.
So wait, I need to play devil's advocate for 1 second here, and I know Tub is incapable of doing that, playing devil's advocate. So let's
It's got
say
the devil in it. He's out.
I can get Marcus.
So-
I can get Marcus one.
so let's say Social Security was never enacted,
Yeah.
and you were able to build that type of wealth, generation over generation. Millions of Americans would have became millionaires, right?
Yeah.
And so you're ending up in a situation like the United Arab Emirates, or any of the Arab Gulf countries, where there are so many rich people, you have to bring in labor to do the most basic of tasks.
Mhm.
How do you think Americans, being who we are, would we have adapted like those Gulf Arabs, or do you think we would have the same conversations that we're having today about immigration and whatnot?
Well, I think people are probably, if everybody's really wealthy, they probably would embrace immigration more, right? Because they're like, we need more people to come here and do the thing, right? But here's the other thing: is just because you give people an opportunity to create wealth and save doesn't mean that they will, right? Like there was a really cool example recently. I think it was Altman, one of the big tech guys in California, did a UBI with a city in California. I can't remember what it was, Fresno or something like that. And they gave like a few thousand people a few $1,000s a month, right? For like 2 or 3 years to see what would happen. And instead of like saving that money and working and having that like as a cushion, most of them quit their job. And at the end of the 3 years, most of them were worse off than they were when they started, because like in the third year, they kind of all started to decide, well, maybe we should start doing something again, right? But literally, they just, a lot of them just sat on their ass. Now, a few of them were like, hey, this is going to be a way that I can really save this money, and I can get to the end of this thing, and I can have $100,000 in the bank, right? I can have $100,000 in the bank at the end of this, and then I could maybe put that as a down payment on a house or whatever, start a small business or whatever, right? So I think that even if we give people the opportunity, there's a vast majority of people that just won't, they're just not motivated to do that.
Because here's the thing: people easily, especially if I would say Americans, easily become complacent.
Oh yeah.
And so here's what happens is that I think they take Social Security is like so many other things that government ends up taking over, because people sit back and they don't really want the responsibility of worrying about how they're going to retire, what they're going to do later on in life. And so they have this false hope that's been sold to them that says, don't worry about it. Government's got you taken care of.
Yeah.
And
Uncle
so
Sam too.
they don't do the things, even like what Lars is just talking about. They don't do those things because they go, I'm fine. And then they don't find out till it's too late when they get there and they go, wait a minute, this $400 a month isn't going to get me there. But it's too late. Now it's too late. And so they've been sold a false bill of goods, if you will, and they just kept taking it. And I keep asking, what is it going to take for people to finally go, we're done here? Because if you remember a number of years back, George W. Bush had a chance to attack this. And he started to, and then he caved.
Yeah.
And then they gave up, because remember he said, hey, let's cut back on Social Security and let people privately invest it, a certain percentage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they vilified that.
He gave in on it.
It's the third rail, right? It's the thing that politicians can't really touch or talk about, because it's like I said, that we're all in a coma based on our entitlements, right? It's like it's hard to take it away once it's put in there, right? And obviously, too, to Marcus's point, he paid in all those years. He wants his damn money, right? Like I get that all together, but yeah, I mean, we have to, what's going to change it is that the economy is going to basically break from the Federal Reserve printing too much money to like fix this problem that they're going to have. And it's just going to, everybody's going to be watered down so much that the dollars in your pocket are going to be so worthless that people are going to finally, I think that's when it's going to slough off. When people figure out that there's no money in any of the banks in America, that it's all fraud. When people figure that out finally, because there will be a day. I mean, believe me, in 1929, when the banks were all collapsing and there was runs on the banks, everybody figured it out real quick that none of that stuff was real, right? Like that it was all and there's no coming back from it, right? Like once your money's gone, like how do you come back from that, right? Like you're just destroyed, basically.
All right, so that right there, because that leads into a lot of the stuff that you were saying while you were running for office.
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do real quick. Marcus, you can go ahead and leave the room. The men are going to talk about campaigns and running campaigns for right? So,
maybe I want to learn about it. How about that?
Because some of us get
All right, take notes, Marcus.
Behind microphones and sunglasses. That's fine. The rest of us go out and get involved and try to make
that was a double-sided attack.
So the men are going to talk for a few minutes, and we're going to talk about campaign type stuff. So just smile and nod every now and then, like you know what we're talking about. All right.
Yeah,
so inside of now, I'm going to ask you some questions overall, Lars. And the goal of this is not to. I don't want you to dog out the current campaign. That's not what this is about. It's not a hey, I would have done better. It's not like that.
Yeah.
But let me ask you first. What would your campaign be doing now, or what? 19 days? Is it 19 days out? We are.
Yeah.
What would your campaign be doing right now, 19 days out?
Yeah. Well, our whole campaign was focused on winning electoral votes, right? And trying to break the whole system so that we could draw people's attention to how broken the system is. Like if you break it right in front of people, they can't be in their coma. They're like, oh, wait, what happened? Oh, crap, right? And then everybody's talking about it. You got to get fire going. That's the thing. And anytime you want to have a movement, you want to get change going, you got to really put the screws in there and get the fire going. And so, what we would be doing is really trying to push on those couple of states that we were focused on to try to break this election. And I think that, I think somebody's talking about the gold dot in Nebraska. So I think that's one of the things that they're talking about, which was essentially our plan, which is to try to get Nebraska to flip, Omaha, Nebraska to flip, and the southern portion of Maine to flip. And I think the election is going to be so close that it literally could be, and it's going to be kind of a shame if it does come down to that those two things would be the difference, right? That those two things would have made a difference. Like that would be really totally crazy to me, right? But I think one of the big things that I kind of got out of this is, while I put $1 million of my own money into the campaign, it wasn't even nearly even a scratch, a drop in the bucket, right? And what we need is like $50 million. And the Libertarian Party does not have a infrastructure or mechanism to raise $50 million. That it just does not exist. And so we need to focus on that, because without focusing on how we're going to grow the party and get more money into the party and get more people, we're dead in the water.
How would you, because you talk about money, and we know how important that is. The rest of us know how important that is to a campaign. And so what would you be spending money on? Because earlier today, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, we could still give to campaigns and stuff like that, but you're really kind of coming to the end now.
Yeah.
And I started looking, I'm like, okay, I donated to the campaign, and I'm like, okay, but there's certain campaign things you expect to see, like merchandise, sign, all those type of things.
Sure.
So I look at it, I go, okay, what would the Libertarians, what would you be doing at this point right now? What would you be spending money on in these last 19 days?
Well, I think my whole campaign was about social media marketing and about, buying ads, because that's what I'm good at, right? I probably spent, I don't know, maybe $50,000 to $100,000 on ad campaigns, and they were effective. Like I reached many, many millions of people, probably 100 million people. Maybe I reached the same people multiple times, but I reached those people. And I think that if we're going to get the message out, that's what we have to do. Like we have to be getting the broad scope out. People they don't, unless you hit them multiple times, they won't remember anything about what you're doing, right? And it's like, people don't even know. Like, we have like 1,000 people running for president right now, and most Americans only know 2 names.
Yep.
Right? Most Americans only know 2 names. They don't even know the top runners from the Libertarian Party, from the Green Party. That like, oh, who's that? I don't know. I never heard of them. Right? And then they just move on, because to them, there's only 2 people running for president, and they have, they're gonna, forced to vote for that. And I think that my whole plan was to try to get more people to understand that there's alternatives, and that there could be alternatives, right? Because right now we don't have that. And I feel like that's a huge disservice to Americans, that we should have more options. We should have more ability to choose how we want to be governed. And what we have is not a choice. What we have is voting against the other guy. Like, they're not even voting for their people anymore. They're just voting against the other guy. It's like, it makes me sad. It makes me sad. It makes me sad for my grandparents who fought in wars, who went through the Great Depression, who, struggled to basically make a better life for themselves and their families. And, I just feel sad that this is the way that it turned out, right? That this is where we've come to.
Would you have had to go with the way you were looking at, and when you heard that Kennedy dropped out?
Yeah.
Would that have changed for you at that point, or would you seen a better opening? What would you?
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. What you had to do is try to right then, massive ad campaign targeted at his people, and saying like, "Hey, we're the home for you now. We're the place that you can come now." And we need your dollars to make it work. We're the only, campaign that's really out there that is independent, third party, non-duopoly. And if you were supporting Kennedy because you liked that, then you should be supporting my campaign. I mean, I literally would have done videos and put them out there and just been like, get on here right now, because there's no other option. Like, if you believe that we should have more choices, you need to back this campaign.
Right. And so let's say you got the nomination, you went through the whole mess, November came around. What would you have considered a win?
Well, I mean, if we would have won electoral vote, I would have considered that a huge victory. All
right. Is there anything other than that you would have looked at and said, hey, we got the word
Well,
out
I mean,
there?
yeah, I think if the metrics I think that would be good would be for money brought into the party, new members brought into the party. How is the party growing, right? I think those are critical pieces. But I mean, it's like there's so many moving factors, as we all know, with the Libertarian Party right now, that you can't blame it on any one person, whether we're being successful or not, right? Like, so I have no disillusion that I would have like been super victorious, right. And I'm not even sure that I would have done a lot better or even matched what Spike and Joe Jorgensen did, just because of the state of the party right now, right? But I do know that I would have. I had $1 million already lined up, so I know that total my campaign would have done $2 million at a minimum, and probably more like $2.5 to $3 million is what I think is realistic. But look, the party decided they wanted to go a different route than with me, and that's fine. And to be honest with you, I'm quite happy with the $1 million that's in my pocket, because I've been investing the shit out of that, and I've been printing money hand over fist ever since. And so, it's like, I would have liked to have, gone all the way and really pushed my agenda, but I also did all the things that I wanted to do in the campaign, pretty much, right? Like, I succeeded in all the things I wanted to do.
There's a level of peace of going, whew.
100%.
I don't have to worry about that. I get back to what I'm supposed to be doing. So let me ask you a question then real quick. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What is your future inside the party?
So, well, one thing I'm working on right now is you guys, Marcus didn't go to the convention, but the rest of you guys went to the convention.
He doesn't. He only hides behind a microphone. He doesn't really get involved like the rest of us do.
So, even though he wears that shirt.
So one of the things that really irritated me about that convention, about the one in Reno, and the different, I went to 35 state conventions. I've seen them all, right? I know how they run. I know what's going on. And man, we wasted so much time at the convention on voting. Just like 80% of the time was counting votes and waiting for votes to come in, and then people being butthurt that they weren't tallied right, or the wrong people were voting, or these people weren't delegate, whatever it was. And it's like, I want a system in place for the next convention that everybody agrees is better than what we have right now and saves us a massive amount of time. And
what are you willing to do to make that happen? Because right there also sounds like a hint of, hey, I'd run for the chair of the LNC. That's kind of what I heard out of that a little bit.
No, I'm definitely not running for chair of the LNC. No, absolutely not. But
I think you're exactly right in what you're saying about what happened to the convention, stuff like that. So what role could you play in saying, hey, how do we make that not happen anymore?
Yeah, so I'm actually working with a group of people right now to offer a solution, a software solution that is going to basically streamline the entire process. And we're pulling in people from all areas of the party so that no one feels like, oh, this is some partisan thing. And it's all open source, so everybody can look at it and review it and know how it's working. And then people will be able to like massage it and work on it themselves if they want to like add on to it or fix it or make it better or whatever. And I just think that, we could get a lot more party business done if we weren't sitting there counting votes one at a time. It just seemed like such a waste. And I talked to people in all areas of the party, and everybody was frustrated with that piece.
Yep.
And so if we can offer a solution that speeds up the system and has transparency, and look, one of the things that we were talking about is we want to fix American voting system, right? We all talk about how we'd love to have a solution to fix the system of America so that we could have, and that's what my whole Voters Bill of Rights was all about, right? And it's all about transparency and open source stuff. So why not create a system inside the Libertarian Party that could be shown as an opportunity for America to sort of adopt that style of voting so that we could have a better voting system for all Americans, right? So we have to start somewhere, and I think the Libertarian Party is a good place to start with it. And there's already a lot of work done in building this thing, and it will definitely be ready. I'm thinking like there will be good working models probably in the next 6 months. So we've been working on it for a while.
And if you don't mind me
Go
jumping in real quick. Sorry. Well, just to stay on this same train of thought, I believe there's a committee within the LNC that is working towards like a blockchain voting system or digitizing the software or whatever. And I think there's a committee to work on ranked choice voting. So would this software be, because what we have isn't actual ranked choice voting. It's like tiered voting.
Yeah.
Right? The way we kind of do ranked choice. I feel like had we had real ranked choice, you could have won. Because for everyone, you saw Dee's comment earlier. Yeah. Everyone I talked to at convention, you were their second choice.
Yeah.
But you came in fourth because they had a first choice that they like more than you. So now I'm not trying to skew things and
so for the actual nomination process, there won't be a presidential nomination in 2026, but there's obviously votes for LNC members, right? So you have that kind of a thing, and a lot of the votes are just up down votes, right? Like it's just literally like do this, and a lot of votes can still be done with just a call of the body, because sometimes it's really clear. It's like 10 people stand up and they're like no, and then it's like okay, that passes, right? But when it's close and you hear everybody yelling for division, that's when this system would kick into place and really really streamline it and kick it into high gear really quickly, right? So, and then just a whole way of tracking delegates so that we know where who's voting and when they're voting and that sort of thing, so that we don't have people coming in and voting that shouldn't be voting and that sort of thing. Because I think we all agree, regardless of where you stand inside the Libertarian Party, that we want to have free and fair elections, that we want to have transparency, and I think that the system that we have right now does not give us that.
During the whole process, I'm going to close out my section here. During the process,
No
I'm telling people, I said, listen, I says, Lars is doing things that's could be making long-term changes inside the party, not just let me get by right now. And I kind of started pointing out to people, like the work you were doing in Maine and stuff along those lines. I'm like, no, that's stuff that could go past Lars.
Yeah.
And we need far more people like you, especially in that aspect, inside the party. We need people who aren't just keyboard warriors who just want to fight with each other all the time. We need people who can say, hey, I've succeeded in life, I've accomplished things, and I would like to bring that into the party. And we have a horrible history of running people like you off. Okay, yeah. So I want to say, hey, stay inside the party. We need more people like you. And I will end my section with this. My wife, actually, I just heard her come in the house. My wife, who is not a libertarian, you were her guy. You were her guy. She liked you. And I was kind of like, wait, Lars? No, I wasn't. So I was like, and so she liked you. And I truly believe that if you were the candidate now, she would confidently be going around saying, hey, vote libertarian. This guy's okay. Because if you can win over a very staunch, very white Christian Republican, you're doing okay. And you were doing that. And so that's why I would say in my section we can say nice things about you because you'll take it from. We can't say nice things about Marcus. Well, mostly because there's no nice things to say about Marcus. But inside of this, I would say, because I've been in for a little while, stay in, stay active. Even if you never run again, we need you and what you do inside the party.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It is it's frustrating. The party is frustrating because it because of the constant fighting that's going on. It's been really a turnoff. I came into the Libertarian Party a little naive. I was a voter for a long time, but I didn't know about party stuff. I was a Libertarian voter for basically ever. Right. But then I came into the party and I thought, oh, this is going to be awesome because finally we're going to have a beast that's going to, we can slay the freaking beast with this tool, right? This Libertarian Party. And it was like, oh, wait, what's going on? Oh, crap. Okay. I got to deal with all this stuff too, on top of the stuff that I'm doing. Right. Like if you have a person that's going to step up to the plate, let's say the Libertarian Party gets like a real deal, solid dude or chick that can bring $50 million to the table and wants to run a real campaign. If they would have seen the shit show that was going on, they would go independent or they would go do something else. They would not sign up for that crap, right? Like you have to give them the infrastructure and the support that they need in order to succeed. And if they don't see that, if they don't see a well-oiled machine, they're not coming. They're not coming. And this movement is not going to be able to really pull it off. Even with, some of the celebrity people that we have, the ability to raise $50 million does not exist currently with pretty much anybody that I know in the Libertarian Party.
Right.
Like does not exist. Right. So, and for me, like I think of myself as a very middle of the road, libertarian. That I'm not left and I'm not right at all. And it was a little bit of a shocker to me and a letdown that there was so much left-right fighting inside the Libertarian Party, because the whole point of me getting into the Libertarian Party was to get away from the left-right fighting. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing in here? This is insane to me. It's like, I don't care about the fringe crap that people care about on the left and the right. I just want to fix the problems that are easy, common sense stuff in America. Can we just do that? It's really not that hard.
What's sad, as we segue into my segment, which is about the election cycle, and it's far more interesting than anything Tubb had brought to the table thus far.
Wait, but Tubb talked about Lars for 20 minutes.
People would just keep nodding off.
You know, I find it rude. I didn't interject during your segment, and yet you come
Because
into
you
my.
couldn't. You had nothing to add to it. That's why.
I had plenty to add to it because I don't.
You couldn't relate, Marcus. You were never a candidate.
This wasn't a raisins and a potato salad segment. Okay, this was a meat and potatoes, and I can relate to that. But I at the time of the Libertarian National Convention, roughly 70+% of Americans were dissatisfied with the choice between Trump and Biden. And I've been preaching this for. I preach this better than Tub on a Sunday morning. I
No,
preach this.
clearly you haven't.
Wow.
Yeah, I 100% did.
Right.
Okay. Now, this was the grandest opportunity for libertarians to make themselves a national presence in the history of the Libertarian Party. And from what I gleaned from the LNC, when them inviting Democrats and Republicans, and the Republicans actually taking that opportunity to show up to this circus, I felt like we didn't present ourselves as a alternate choice, just some Republican, the quintessential Republicans that like to smoke weed. That's how the Libertarian Party presented itself in this election cycle to me. And I was astoundingly disappointed with the leadership at the LNC that booted the ball. I'm trying not to cuss in front of Tub because I know he kind of tenses up, and I want to make sure this brother
That's
stays.
just you. It's not just your cuss words. It's basically everything you say.
Yeah, I understand that fact. You know, right now I know you're clenching your wallet when you see me. You're like, hey.
Yo, here it comes. Black man gonna steal my
you
wallet
almost
over
got
the
me.
phone.
Yeah, you almost got me right there. You know.
Which side of the street do you go to when Marcus is?
I live on the other side of the country.
Other.
Stay away from me.
The other's coast, bro. The other coast.
And
It's still a little bit too close.
and I'm not. I want to. I'm happy with our choice. I think as far as LNC, because he was in my top 3, president company included.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it could have been different. You know, I'm doing my best Trumpism right here. Maybe it could have been different. Maybe a lot of people are saying that though. But I liked Lars and his platform very a whole hell of a lot, and I like
Top.
Yeah, and what disappoints me is we can't rally around the tent, or what how do you say it when you come together?
Unify,
No, or rally around the something, whatever it is.
rally the troops.
I understand a lot of people's problem with Chase. I honestly do. But I don't think they've given him an honest chance because, the main thing that people say around Chase is he's for mutilating kids. Trump just said he's for mutilating kids with parental permission this like a few days ago. It's a position no different than what Chase has took. But we still can't get that message across to all these disenfranchised, the majority of Americans, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, all these disenfranchised Americans, because we can't have a cohesive message. And more importantly, we can't raise $50 million because that's one of the main things. And I don't understand a guy like Elon Musk that's saying he's for free speech and all of these other things. And he even said Twitter cannot take a political stance on anything. And then he's openly supporting one side of the duopoly. And this isn't something that Americans can truly rally around, is this divisiveness that we have within the duopoly. And with that being said, Lars, where do you stand on this election? What do you think our prospects are as far as percentage-wise, what we're going to get, or where do you think Americans are leaning, so to speak?
Yeah. it's really hard. We got an echo. Let's see if we can. What do you got?
We can hear you.
Yeah, but do you have the echo?
Yeah.
No.
Now I don't. It's good now. Good now.
Okay, cool. I first said Trump was going to win when Biden was running, and then I was looking at Kamala and I think, oh man, she's really coming on strong. I think she's going to win. And now I think it's pretty much neck and neck, and I honestly don't know who's going to win it. But you know, one of the things that and it kind of goes to the point that you were just making. You know, I talk to people about, they're like, oh, I'm in California, I'm going to vote for whatever. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you're voting for Kamala. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, if you don't, it doesn't matter who you vote for, because it's a winner take all state and it's more than 50% plus one. And people don't understand that. And that was my whole point of my campaign, was to try to break the system so that people will wake up and be like, wait a minute, you mean not only does my vote not count, but my vote turns into a vote for the other guy.
Yeah.
Right. Like what are you talking about right now? So like I voted, you know, if you vote for Trump in California, you're voting for Kamala Harris. That's it. 100%. And if you want your vote to count, you have to move to one of the 7 battleground states. That's it. Like that. Otherwise your vote it's already counted. That's why no presidential candidates come to California that has 35 million people or 40 million people in it. They don't even stop here because they don't care. They already know how it's going to go. Right. And I want my presidential candidates to come to my state and tell me how they're going to fix my life. Not just the 7 states that matter in the election. I want them to represent all Americans, not just those people that can get them elected. Right. Because that's what the president's all about. And I think that's where the system is broken. That's why I did the whole Voters' Bill of Rights, so that we could have broken down. I like the way Maine and Nebraska do it, where they break it down by congressional district. California would have like 35 different congressional districts, and the votes would come in 35 different ways. And I think that represents the people a lot better than one giant vote, because the whole eastern part of California is red. All the farmers are red, and all the farmers would vote for Trump. I wouldn't vote for Trump, and I wouldn't vote for Kamala, but I think that if you were going to cast your vote, at least it should freaking count for who you cast your vote for.
That's the weird thing that people don't know about California. California has more Republican counties than Democratic counties.
Yes.
Technically.
Yeah. So, and you know, they've rigged that whole system, and then so until we unrig that system, you know, we're screwed. Basically, we're going to continue to have what we have, because it's like gerrymandering on a state level is what that really is. That's really what that comes down to. Is like, and we didn't always do that when the founding fathers first set up voting. Obviously, it's up to each state, but all states had congressional voting. You know, and it was funny because when Donald Trump called Nebraska to try to get rid of my plan, he's like, we have to go back to what the founding fathers envisioned, which is winner take all. And I'm like, bro, you didn't study nothing, because it wasn't that way when they started out. It was that, you know, we all get to be represented. And right now, 70% of Americans vote for president. You're unrepresented, and that is a shame to me. That's a rigged system. Like when 70% is not counted, that's a rigged system.
So I have a question for Lars, if I was Chase or the Libertarian candidate, I wouldn't be Chase. If I was Chase, he'd be me and I'd be him. Anyways, if I was the Libertarian candidate, I think my focus would be on first-time voters, and I think Chase can appeal to those, being the youngest candidate on the ballot, and registered voters that didn't vote for president last election. People that were registered then and didn't vote. And you can find that information at your local supervisor elections office. If I was the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian candidate, I would have been going after them. Lars, if you were the Libertarian candidate, what would your strategy have been to win votes? I know Maine and Nebraska.
Yeah.
But how would you target votes? And if you were Chase's campaign manager, what would your recommendation to him be?
Yeah, well, let me ask you, you want to target these people to what end? like, so you get, what are you trying to get? Do you want 5% of the vote? Do you want like just to get as many votes as you possibly can? What's your goal in targeting those people?
Well, I definitely I would want to get a highest vote percentage for libertarian in a certain number of states. So let's break it down by states. I know that's, or even congressional districts. If you just broke a record, like, oh my gosh, like I did when I ran for city council in Jacksonville. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
But that would be my goal, is just to break a record in a list, and have the Libertarian Party get share. Like, oh my gosh, our presidential candidate in this city got the most votes a Libertarian presidential candidate ever got. Like, that would be my goal.
So that was the same thing that I concluded when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Is I want to do something that hasn't been done before, that would put us on the map, that would be a win for libertarians that no one else has ever done. We haven't ever won an electoral vote except for Tony Nathan in 1971, which was a rogue elector. There's never been a time where people in America were like, you know what? Screw these other people. We're voting libertarian. And that's why my whole gold on the map thing that's what it was all about, is just trying to like give us that win, give us that thing that's like, see, we freaking accomplished something, right? Because to me, if you got 1 million votes or 2 million votes, no one cares. The day after the election, no one cares. It's like, cool, you got 2 million votes, you got 1 point. Like, no one's gonna, whatever Chase gets, it's not Chase. It's whatever libertarian presidential candidate gets the next day. It doesn't matter. You're a footnote. The only way that you become something more is you break the system and you make everybody go, holy crap, what the hell did they do? They won Maine, they won Nebraska. These people are now have power. The next time around, we've got to really watch these people because they are influencing the election, right? And so that's what I was trying to do. I didn't want to just get 1 million votes or 2 million votes, or, I mean, it'd be nice to get 5% so we get matching funds. Of course, everybody in the Libertarian Party goes back and forth on whether we should use matching funds or not, because it's, government money and all that kind of stuff. And then it comes down to what do you want to do? Like, do you want to affect change, or do you just want to like yell at the wall?
Yeah.
Right? Like that.
I have an idea. We use the matching funds, spending money to lobby Congress to get rid of matching funds. That's what I would use the money for.
I'm for that. I'm for that. I mean, yeah, the whole system is, I put so much effort into policy. Michael White was on my policy team, Larry Sharp, and we had a great team of policy people, and we met a couple times a week for like almost a year. And we put endless hours of research and thought into what we did. I guarantee you our policy was the best policy that, as far as thought out and written down and really gone into. Nobody even touched what we did, the amount of effort and energy. I probably spent $100,000 or $200,000 just on policy, just on making sure that our stuff was, going to be solid and good. And I think that is why we had legs in the media. Now, the Libertarian Party didn't vote for me, but the media was voting for me. The media was on, like I'm quoted in the New York Times. I was getting on, big shows. I don't know how many polls Chase has been in. I think he's been in quite a few. But, going into the convention, I was slaying it on the polls. I was just getting polls left and right. Gary Johnson only had like 4 or 5 polls pre-nomination. I had like 15, right? And everybody was like so excited that he was getting polled because no one had ever gotten polled before that. So pre-nomination, I believe I hold the record for the most polls for a presidential nominee.
There's a certain level of you have and what you offer to the party. You're kind of like the libertarian unicorn. Because of the fact that you are able to produce some of your own funds, you're able to bring in some funding, stuff along those lines. You kind of really focus it on real election type stuff. And so that's not always happening. So I guess the question becomes is, how do we draw in Lars in and draw in others like Lars into the party? Like, what made you come in that made you go, hey, here's what I'm able to offer, and here's what we're able to do. Look how I'm different. What made you come in?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it was just like I felt like I could bring my marketing expertise to the table in a way that I hadn't seen the Libertarian Party do before. Like that was my whole thing, was like, I believe I can get the message out to more people than anybody else. And so that's what I'm going to go do. And I believe, like, you know, I believe that I reach more people than any of the other campaigns. I honestly believe that. Even Chase having gotten the extra months of exposure, I still feel like I reach more people than any of the other campaigns. And that's not a slight on anybody. It's just that because I had money and I was marketing, that was what was happening, right? And so for that piece, I feel like I achieved my goal, which was to reach as many people as I possibly could given the budget that I had, right? And that's just my business background, because that's how I make money, is to reach the most people possible with the least amount of money. That's that's how I made all my riches, basically.
So let me ask you this, and I want to make sure I phrase this correctly. Excuse me. I'm just taken aback by Tubbs' resilience in this podcast tonight. It's been truly amazing that he has been so lucid.
Because we kept
Wait, aren't y'all the same age?
Quiet, and we can have adult conversations, and it becomes much easier.
I'm sorry, Lars, that you had to be included in that. But it just strikes me that we had so many opportunities this election cycle to make a dent, and I will stand on this. I am all for matching funds, because I always say there's two things the Uniparty will always agree upon: going to war, and when I say going to war and spending too much money, that's the same thing to me. They will always agree on going to war and spending too much money, and keeping the system the same that kept them in power. And we do need, the libertarians need a Elon Musk. We need somebody that is beyond $50 million, because I just read today the Adelson widow gave Trump $95 million over a 3-month period.
Isn't that amazing? That's mind-boggling to me. I mean, if even if I had that money, I wouldn't give it to any of these politicians.
You know how rich you have to be to give somebody $95 million, and
you gotta be a billionaire. The only way you can do it is be a billionaire, right? That's it. Yeah. And so and like we weren't on New York ballot, and what was the other one we weren't on? I can't remember. There was another
Tennessee. Okay,
so there was a maybe Illinois.
3, but I don't know.
Illinois maybe.
Yeah, Illinois. Yep.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And so, like, to me, that's the bare minimum. The bare minimum is we should be on all 50 ballots. Like, that's like, to me, that's like the number one thing the party is responsible for as far as it comes to presidential campaign. Is like, hey, Libertarian National Committee, your job is to make sure that in 2028, the next Libertarian candidate is on the ballot in all 50 goddamn states. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, on Twitter, I saw like that goofy lady from Colorado that wears a hat, cowboy hat, say something about like her candidate, which I'm pretty sure she supported, the goofy guy, Reichenwald. And I straight up said to her on Twitter, your camp should choose a better candidate next time. Like, that's my problem, is why didn't they just get behind you and be like, look, but I don't think that camp wanted us to have ballot access in all 50 states.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories inside the Libertarian Party. I don't know how much I buy any of them. And I don't really care, because what I care about is that we move forward with a cohesive effort to push whoever's the next nominee and get them that 50 state ballot access and get them as much funding as we possibly can I think it's critical, right? I think it's critical. And some people argue that the presidential candidate is not important, that we should be focusing on the down ballot campaigns, but there's no other opportunity to get national media attention with the libertarian name attached to it than if you were, and that is why I ran for president, by the way. And I didn't run for Congress, and I didn't run for local, state, whatever thing, because a lot of people are like, Lars, why'd you go straight for freaking president? You could have started out as mayor or something like that before moving on up to, like, you went for the very top of the game. And it was like, yeah, because that, and it matches what I was trying to say, which is I wanted to get the most bang for the buck and get my message out to the most people possible. And people in New York and Florida are not going to be listening to a guy running for state senate in California. They don't care, right? Now I agree that the local candidates are the ones that are going to be able to affect the most change, right? If we can get Michael White to win in Arkansas, he's going to change things, right? He's going to change things. So I absolutely agree. Those are super important. But if you want to grow the Libertarian Party across the country and you want to have real political power and real political change, you have to kick ass in the presidential nomination, in the presidential run. That's what you have to do, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is libertarians need to take an energy approach to elections. And an energy approach is all the above. I mean, nuclear, coal, gas, natural gas, oil, whatever it is. We need to take a all the above approach until the market brings something better. And so what we need to do is not only be like Lars and present ourselves in the grand fashion as a national candidate, but we also need to be like Michael White down there in the West Little Rock district. I forgot, what is it, the 3rd district or whatever it is. But we also need to be
Little Rock.
West Little Rock district. We also need to be like him and go for the local stuff and show that this isn't just a party of Republicans that like to smoke weed. We are a party of ideas, and that's one thing that the duopoly doesn't do. It's no longer about good ideas. It's about why that other person sucks. I see Tub boiling over right now, and he's distracting me from my point.
No, you had no point. It's not there. So,
Marcus is on a rant. Let him rant.
But no, I was going to agree with you. Okay, because what you do is this. You get guys like Mark. We run a presidential candidate. People start hearing, "Oh, libertarian, what's that?" And then locally, they get to actually talk to the candidate. They get to actually go, "Oh, now I've heard of a libertarian. Great. Now I can talk to this person directly and go, hey, what do you like? What do you got going on?" So they get the name recognition through the presidential candidate, party recognition, and then they get to talk to the real people implementing it at the local level.
So this is actual trickle-down politics that actually works. Is that what you're saying? Because trickle-down, I don't think trickle-down, and I'm not trying to be controversial, but I don't truly believe trickle-down economics works. You have to go out there and make your own waterfall. You can't wait for somebody to trickle upon you. And that's the same thing with politics, whether it be local or national. You can't wait for somebody else to step up to the plate. And while I have not exactly stepped up to the plate and ran myself, I'm bringing this vessel for the people that have, so they could be brought to the people and see what this is actually about. So I'm actually better than all three of you people.
Whoa!
What do you mean, the three of you people?
Exactly what I said. I am the one that had the gumption to bring forth the grand prospect of the Black Powder podcast. Prior to that, and we just surpassed 16,000 followers or whatever. But prior to that, I had the other black guy who likes gun show, and that was 15,000 plus people. And I take that as a grand mark of influential activities, so to speak. And now I'm here, and I always like to bring up Spike Cohen because he was one of the first guests on mine. I was one of the first guests on his. And, we have that. He's been a tad bit more successful than me. Not by much. Not by much. No. But, I always like to say I am Spike Cohen's I lifted him up. I was his support system, you know. And I see that with Lars. I see that with Eric. I don't know about Tub because I'm not that strong anymore. I'm not the young guy.
Marcus is like he's like Atlas. Everybody's on his back.
Yeah.
Keeping
everybody
everything up in the air.
Yeah, and Michael White, he's going to win his election. And
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be in his cabinet. He's going to hire me. I'm moving to Arkansas.
Yeah, he's going to follow, not so much in Bill Clinton's steps, I hope, but he's going to be the next guy from Arkansas that goes to the White House. And, I was hoping it would be Lars. I'm not going to freaking lie and say that. Although, Lars came out here to Southern California and went to a shooting range and did not contact me.
What?
I told him if he's ever down here, I will smoke some meat for him. And there's no sexual innuendo in that. This isn't a puppy party.
Clean his rifle after.
Yeah. And, so I take that horse plop personal. And horse plop was for Tub.
Marcus not cussing is funnier than him cussing.
So, Lars, if you don't let me know when you step into anywhere below Santa Barbara County,
all right,
from here forth.
From here forth, okay.
You better come correct.
There's gonna be some personal beef. I'm gonna put you persona non grata anywhere because everything Santa Barbara above to me is South Oregon to begin with. Only thing with California is below that.
California doesn't start till you get to Ventura.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, it ends at Ventura. after Ventura, it's South Oregon because there's some damn hippies up there. You know, what I mean?
I have no idea what y'all are talking about.
That's what I'm saying. I'll just sit here. Y'all enjoy the conversation.
And
look, Florida is Duval.
That's the problem with public education. We don't actually study geography, to which most people don't even know the geography of their own country. And when I'm talking to Lars about this, because he's right. In California, there's San Diego County, LA County, Santa Barbara County, and whatever county San Francisco is. I don't give a damn. Darn. But those are the 4 counties that divide federal racist. Racist. Not racist.
Okay. Racist.
Whoa. Yeah. Making it all about race again.
But like Lars and I were saying, there are more Republican counties in California, and that should kill people's minds about the electoral college system. And I was going to ask Lars, does your point of view kill the electoral college system, or does it enhance it?
No, I actually think that the electoral college system is good. But that it's been corrupted by this winner take all crap. That if we got rid of that and we had a more proportional representation, then you get into that whole thing of like, well, we should have a lot more people in Congress. Like if we had the same amount of people in Congress that the founders originally thought per person, because it's by amount of people, right? We'd have something like 2,000 people in the House of Representatives or more. And they stopped doing that. And it's like, look, we live in a society now where in a time where electronics and electronic voting is taking place, you could easily have 2,000 representatives easily. Right. And so then you would get much more nuanced voting. Right. Because these votes are close and it's like 250 to 249 or whatever it is, right? If you had a lot more people, those votes would be a lot more varied, and I think that would be useful too. So I'm for more proportional representation. We should have more people in the House of Representatives. The Senate is the Senate. It just is, 2 per state. That's the way it is, right? But the House should be a lot bigger. We have the technology to be able to do it. The only argument that I have that I don't like about that is we're creating thousands of more government employees,
Yeah.
thousands of more
Lars is
bureaucrats. Right?
pro-government. He's the big government guy.
I'm for big government. Yeah, that's 100% me. Yes,
right.
I love me some government. I love the entitlement blanket. I'm myself. I'm in the coma.
So as we wrap this up, I'm gonna defer to Eric and Tubb for their closing statements. Then I'll get mine, and we're gonna end with the wise words of Lars Mapstead. And I think that's wholly appropriate. So Eric, go ahead and give your closing statement on tonight's podcast, sir.
I'm just going to say Marcus's shirt says he's the only real libertarian. We all know that's not true because he's never ran for office.
Right.
But the other three of us have ran for office as libertarians. But I'm the only one rocking a Lars for President shirt. So with that, Lars, thanks for coming on. I was happy to cast my vote for you as a delegate at National every round until you were no longer available. I would have loved to have seen what you would have been able to accomplish if you had been our presidential candidate, but I digress. I'm happy you're staying involved with the party. I'm looking forward to seeing how the electronic voting at the next convention, if I go. If Lars, you're going to be there, maybe I'll go.
I will be there.
But if we could get that accomplished, I think that'd be huge. Keep up everything you're doing. Keep posting dope pictures of you racing awesome cars on the internet.
Lars, thanks for coming despite Marcus. We appreciate that. And truly, I'll make this simple. Just stay involved. Just, you walked into, you got a good kind of view of what the party looks like. But remember, there's always hope that there are some other people who see what you're saying, and there are other people who agree with you, and then we want to kind of get together and work in all of that environment and really move this party forward. And I think that we need you and others like you to move the party to where it needs to be. So I would tell you, get past this, breathe a little bit, stay involved, and keep harassing us and let us know. I think any of us sitting here right now would say, hey, anything you need help with, let us know.
I appreciate that.
Well, I just want to close with these remarks right here. I'm going to take a higher ground than Tubb. I don't really.
Yeah, he's like 7 feet above sea level.
I really don't think belittling any of your co-hosts accomplishes anything, and Want never done that in my entire life. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Lars in particular, because you're one of my favorite people. I've always, we haven't met in person, and that's entirely and absolutely your damn fault, because I would have drove up to that range. It was less than 60 miles from my house, and showed you some real firearms and a tactical black guy unlike no other. And, I appreciate what you did. I've reached out to you in several different ways and told you what I thought about you, but I think it's not very little to say that you are one of the iconic figures in the Libertarian Party right now, and I truly appreciate you putting forth your own money, because a lot of libertarians don't even put forth money to support fellow libertarians. And like I've been telling Michael White, with all the people that have been contributed to him, and the ones that don't, I've been saying you need to put your money where your memes are, because libertarians love memes. They love all the BS, and they love to like show out. But if we're not going to give a few bucks here and there, we're not going to get anywhere. And unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunate, because libertarians are capitalists. And if you don't understand capitalism has a place in politics, you don't understand politics. And if you're not going to be a libertarian that puts your money where your mouth is and tries to get an actual libertarian, I don't want to hear that crap about, well, Libertarian Party doesn't take itself seriously and it doesn't blah, 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 blah. If you're not going to step up and actually try to do the bare minimum, like I'm doing the bare minimum, I'm giving Tubb a platform. If it wasn't for me, Sub would be eating some mayonnaise and noodles right now in Florida.
What?
He's from Connecticut. They don't know
Have
what
you?
flavor-
Have,
He doesn't know what flavor is.
I'll
And,
tell
and you know, I'm giving you a.
Dude, stay
This is my
focused.
turn. This is my. I did not interrupt you.
Yeah.
Doing
your
good
rant trailed off.
yeah, and you
Let
know
it
that's
go.
why I was like thinking, who can we get on for this week? And the first person that came to mind was Lars Mapstead, because I absolutely admire you and your wherewithal, your entrepreneurship. You're what libertarians don't cry. You know, it's gonna make this awkward. I thought you were wiping away a tear. They're gonna make this very awkward. Yeah. I had Tup crying the other day when I was telling him Florida man jokes, but it wasn't crying for the right reasons. You could cry out of
Most people don't cry for those reasons around you.
yeah. But thank you very much. And with that being said, I'm gonna leave it to Lars to give his closing statement, and I just want to express my gratitude for you coming on. We're gonna have you on like at least 1 or 2 more times before the year's out, but go ahead, sir.
Awesome. Well, what we didn't get to, and we'll get to the next time, is my loathing for the Federal Reserve.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's one of the things that I got out of my campaign. You know, I knew that I didn't like the Federal Reserve, but having been in a financial background for a long time, I kind of like, you know, they tell you that the Federal Reserve is for your benefit, and if we didn't have the Federal Reserve, the whole market would fall apart, and the market couldn't exist without the Federal Reserve, because they make the market basically. What a load of crap that is, right? Basically, what I learned in running and really and reading that book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, is that the Federal Reserve, just like we talked about Social Security as a system to keep people poor and keep people, working, dollar to dollar wage slave kind of stuff, the Federal Reserve was created by the banks to keep everybody down. And when the left talks about income inequality and wealth inequality, and that they can't get ahead and the housing's too expensive and that they can't afford to take care of their kids, all this stuff is the stupid Federal Reserve. And they're pointing it at the rich people, but the rich people aren't the problem. The Federal Reserve is the problem. The rich people that they really should, the Occupy Wall Street people were onto something, but they weren't pointing the finger at the right place. They were like, these banks are the problem. But the banks are at the behest of the Federal Reserve. They get all of their power from the Federal Reserve, and the whole system is built to funnel money from the lower people up to the banking system, the banking cartel that has us all slaves to the system. So if America wants to be free, my number one issue now, and has been for a while, is to abolish the Federal Reserve, because this is the thing that is keeping all Americans down. This is the thing that is stealing and robbing you of your standard of living each and every day. And it's creating all the strife that we have. And we could not have the wars that we have. We could not be bombing the kids around the world if we didn't have the Federal Reserve. We got to get rid of this thing. It's an atrocity. It's a human atrocity, a human issue. There's millions and millions of people are dying and have died because of the Federal Reserve. And we need to get rid of this thing because it's gross. That's it.
Okay, so Lars, with that being said, I want to ask you to book us for the Thursday before Black Friday. So Americans, we could talk about that, and Americans can truly understand how their dollars are being manipulated out
That's
of
good.
their concerns. So can we get a informal commitment to the what do you people call it? You call it White Thursday? What I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm just putting it out there.
Well, I'm white. I still call Black Friday Black Friday.
That's racist. It's racist. No, why does it have to be black? I mean, every Friday is a good. From my Tub, I wanted to tell you, my dad was a deacon. I was raised in the Baptist church, and
look at how far he's fallen.
But hold on. See, this is showing the difference between a deacon and a pastor. Clearly,
yeah. The deacons ran the church. The pastors were.
I'm gonna talk to your daddy and find out what happened.
Hey, when can we have your dad on?
He's actually in Delray Beach. He's down the coast from you. He's not that far. So
he's trying to get further.
Hey,
Yeah.
Tub, if you're trying to get off here, not like that. If you're trying to get an end to this podcast,
Yeah.
quit indulging.
Yeah. You need to stop. You know, you're an antagonizer.
I said nothing. I just sat here. I let
You
it
love
go.
to antagonize me for no reason. Lars, thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you, Lars.
And I want to
Thanks, Lars.
apologize both in advance of your next episode on White Thursday. I guess that's what we're going to call it. And for Tub being available that day, I want to apologize to you in advance. But this has been the Black Powder Podcast. And as always, we want to thank you guys for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. Lars, where can they find you on social media?
I'm still running Lars for President on Twitter and Facebook, so you can dial me in there.
Follow my guy because we're also going to have an investment episode, you know, because I'm going to start booking Lars once a month. So next episode is the Federal Reserve. December is the investment episode as you guys start to close your tax portfolios and prepare for fiscal year 2025. If that it depends on how you want to sum that up. As far as the IRS is concerned, it's the beginning of the year, right, Lars?
Yeah, I mean, they are so all over the place. They don't even know what day it is anymore.
Okay, so we're gonna have a fiscal episode and Lars's investment opportunities going into 2025 and where he thinks you should put your money. So
I'll tell you where I'm putting my money right now.
Where?
I'm putting my money in nuclear power companies.
There you go. You got your first tip from the Lars Mapstead economic episode, nuclear energy. With that being said, this has been the Black Powder Podcast. As we always wish our fellow Americans in this republic live free
or die.
All right, and we're going to